start buying lotto tickets.
Yeah. All right. Welcome, everyone. We have a extremely special guest here, Joe, probably one of our most professional business owners slash competitors slash father slash what else haven't you done? Academics, uni degrees, well known in Australia, in the IFBB and I guess in the supplement industry, Joe Mencel. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we've got obviously the regulars, Cam and Dave, coached by Dean. And we are going to talk about a lot of things. So we'll do business, bodybuilding, fatherhood, life. What do you want to cover first, Joe, if you have a preference?
Completely up to you guys. I think, probably based on your audience, my work in the fitness space and probably skewed towards bodybuilding, to, give a bit of background is probably a good place to start. But I'm here at your disposal. So lead the way and I'll follow.
Okay, let's start with if for people who don't know you or know less about you, who are you?
So my name's Joseph Mencel, as you introduced. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a professional men's physique athlete. I'm a husband, a father. I've done a whole lot in the fitness space around supplementation, activewear, promoting the IFBB Pro League in Australia, competing, obviously. Yeah, a few things over the years. That's yeah, I've developed most of my career in the fitness space since the early 2000s.
Yeah, I guess all the competitors will definitely know you because you were obviously hosted all the IPB shows with Tony.
hmm
Mm.
Yeah, from 2018 to the end of 2024. So there was 6 years there where I was the promoter for the IFBB Pro League in South Australia, but then I emceed a lot of the shows, interstate nationals, obviously alongside Tony, and was kind of I guess, his right-hand man for
Mm.
the on-stage side of things. And then all the promoters, myself, John, Greshy, the different Perth promoters over the years. Scotty Goebel was in a Victorian promoter for a while there as well. We were kind of all involved in taking the IFBB Pro League from where it was in 2017, 2018 to where it is now, which is a much better place, thankfully.
Mm. Yeah, it's really good where it is now. Obviously, COVID did slow it down a little bit, but it has come back pretty strong. We just need that pro show presence, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what everyone's waiting for. But we've got the three seasons now. You've got A, B, and C,
Mhm.
which is good.
Yeah.
I know he wants to chuck in a second season for the Naturals as well, I think.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm a little bit out of the loop now with exactly what's happening. I haven't had much to do behind the scenes since 2024,
Mm.
but I do hear rumors that yeah, there's another season. So it looks like there'll be A, B, C, and D
Yeah.
eventually. So it's pretty much a season every 3 months.
Yeah, well, hopefully that helps promote the addition of a pro show attached to one of them.
Yeah, the pro show's an interesting economic experiment, I
Mm.
think, and obviously I don't want to speak for Tony, but I'm pretty confident in what he would say in this regard because I've heard him say it so many times. The pro show was always attached to FitX or the Arnold.
Mm.
Before that, Tony used to promote the pro shows as like the Australian Grand Prix, so on and so forth. But that was kind of like it was a different time back then. And then he started FitX, and then the pro show was always attached to FitX. And then it wasn't just bodybuilding, it was all the other categories. And then obviously Tony was invited by Arnold to bring the Arnold Classic to Australia, which then became the Arnold Sports Festival Australia. And then that was where it was like, okay, now we can do pro bodybuilding, pro figure, pro fitness, pro bikini, pro men's physique, because it was just this big economic engine that provided the economics to make something like that work. Like
Mm.
promoting pro shows from a business standpoint is a very it's a tricky business to make work because it's very expensive. And if you look at, where's the revenue going to come from to cover those expenses? And when I talk about expenses, just very high level, right?
Mm.
So you've got all of the associated costs with running a show first and foremost. So you've got, your venue hire, you've got your stage hire, you've got your all of the associated expenses with actually putting a show on. Then, as soon as you're dealing with pro athletes, well, you've got
Prize
prize
money.
money, you've got sanction fees to the IFBB Pro League in the US to run the pro show. Then you've got flights, accommodation. If you're going to do it properly and you want
Mm.
the top athletes, they're going to expect for their expenses to be covered. So, flights, accommodation, meals, all these bits and pieces. So, you can very quickly see how you rack up a pretty significant expense bill. How are you going to cover those expenses? Well, unfortunately, the sport is not big enough to sell enough tickets, right?
Yeah,
So it's not,
sponsors.
yeah, ticket sales are fine, but you need sponsors to come on board to make it happen, right? How do you sell sponsorships? Well, you sell sponsorships through attention. Ultimately, that's what you're selling, right? Is it's like, okay, I'm going to give you 10 grand to sponsor this show. What am I going to get in return? Well, what I'm going to get in return is the attention of the people who are watching the show. And I need to make that work for my business, so on and so forth. How much attention is there? Once again, there's only so much you can
Yeah,
charge for sponsorships. You're not going to go and get $1 million sponsorship to run a pro show like you would get to run the Australian Grand Prix, for example,
yeah.
right? So it's tough to make work if there's not an economic engine behind the scenes driving it as well.
Mm.
So, I think that's why during COVID, and you're right, Andrew. During COVID, obviously we lost the Arnold and most expos, but that was really the final Arnold was, well, it didn't even go ahead in 2020, right? It was 2019, and then we haven't had it come back. So there hasn't been that economic engine that really kind of makes it economically viable to run a pro show.
Yeah, we need a big name, and like you said, you need those big athletes because yeah, nobody's going to come watch. If it's
Yeah,
just all the pros from Australia, nobody even knows who they are.
Do
yeah,
you think that the landscape in the fitness industry changing in the last like 10 years has made this harder too? Because obviously you had a lot of massive Joe's stores. I'm not sure how many brick and mortar stores you have now, but
yeah.
the landscape of supplements was not online so much back then, and it was more stores selling product rather than online. So do you think that change has made it like harder for, people don't need to sponsor a bodybuilding show, they'll just do paid promotion on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, Yeah, it's from a I mean this I guess there's two parts there, Dave. So the first one is the supplement piece in particular. When I started Massive Joe's in 2005, I started online. So I actually didn't open a bricks and mortar retail store until 2013. So I had 8 years of pure online like e-commerce before I stepped into bricks and mortar retail. So I know that world, like that's my bread and butter, and still is with what I do now. Um, to answer that question, yes, there has been a significant shift there. That's obviously just the supplement space. There's a whole lot of, complementary industries that attach to fitness that aren't just supplements, gyms, equipment, activewear, so on and so forth. But the supplement space has shifted a lot. I think so far as sponsorships are concerned, that's probably the bigger issue because you're 100% right. Back when you were selling, I mean, I'll talk from my experience when we started sponsoring FitX, right? So before the Arnold was here, we did 2 years of FitX sponsorship, and then we were gold sponsor at the Arnold 5 years in a row from when it started to when it ended. I don't think there was any other company that did 5 years straight of gold sponsorship. So, and I think that kind of speaks volumes for what I saw over that. Well, yeah, the 2 years of FitX, it was 7 years. So back when we first started sponsoring FitX and then into the Arnold, from my perspective as a sponsor, and our sponsorship package to be a gold sponsor was 50 grand, plus GST, Andrew. So
Yeah,
55 grand, right?
of
That
course.
was just the sponsorship. And then obviously we had all of the expenses related to the booth and the transport and the flights and the accommodation. It was a significant expense for a 2 to 3 day expo. But back then, it made a lot of sense for me because I was like, well, there's a lot of people that come through this expo that are definitely part of my target market. And it's really difficult for me to reach those people outside of this type of event. So from very early on, it was, I don't like using the word no-brainer, but it was as close as you could get to a no-brainer, right? It was like, well, I'm going to pay call it 100 grand for the weekend. I know I'm going to reach thousands of people. I'm going to sell a bunch of product there. I'm going to get those people in my database. I'm going to, they're going to fall into my business funnel. They're going to come back and purchase time and time again. And from a return on investment perspective, it made sense. That was back. What was that? That would have been 2012,
You put that down as a marketing fee?
100% marketing, pure
Yeah.
marketing, and really pure customer
Yeah.
acquisition. That was 2012. You fast forward 10 years to 2022, or even, between 2026, 14, 15 years now, your ability to reach those people has changed
Mm.
dramatically, right? Like now, and you're right, Dave, is you can go, okay, I'm going to go set up meta ads, right? And the AI is going to do all the targeting for me. All I have to do is come up with a really cool creative that has a nice hook, a nice call to action. I can measure all of the data in real time like that. I could turn budgets on, turn budgets off, scale budgets up, scale budgets down, and I can hit that exact person or that exact avatar who is smack bang in the middle of my target market for my business. You couldn't do that 10 years ago. You couldn't do that 15 years ago. So I think back to that question, yeah, it's become much more difficult to sell sponsorships for things like expos and shows and so on and so forth, because now as a promoter selling that sponsorship, you got some pretty hard competition, right? Like how do you compete with meta ads in the digital space? How do you compete with Google ads in the digital space? Chat GPT, OpenAI is now launching ads on Chat GPT. How do you compete with OpenAI ads, where you're like, yeah, tell us the avatar you want to target. We'll go and find them and deliver your creative directly to that person. Shit.
You'd know as well, Joe, that you go to America now, like a lot of the malls are empty because everything's online.
Yeah. Look, I think the online versus bricks and mortar thing is interesting. How it depends how deep you go down that rabbit
Mm.
hole, right? Because what you do find is you find a lot of businesses that started online that have done a really good job online eventually go into bricks and mortar. Let's take, for example, we'll take an Australian apparel brand, LSKD, right? You guys are all familiar with LSKD,
Yeah.
right? So they started pure ecom. That was the Daniel's business was pure ecom.
Yeah, because they got a
That's
store in
all.
that new Burnside shopping centre now.
They've opened 30 stores in the
Oh, have
last
they?
6 months. Yeah, all
I,
over the
I, only, I
country.
only know the one.
Yeah, but for them, and once again, I'm not going to speak for LSKD, but knowing how these businesses work, they get to a point where it's like, well, shit, we actually can't spend any more money on ads online,
Yeah.
right? We're getting all the attention, and the thing with ad spend online is the more money you spend, the lower your return on ad spend is, and that's just the nature of the web goes out further and further, so you get colder and colder audiences. So from them, it's like, well, we're kind of at the point where we've hit the tipping point with we're spending as much as we possibly can in the online space. How else are we going to acquire new customers? Now let's go look at bricks and mortar retail, and from an economic perspective, where the business is at. Now that makes sense.
Mm.
So I'm not so sure that it's as clean cut as going, yeah, e-commerce has stolen a lot of bricks and mortar. I think that the pendulum swings equally in the opposite direction. It's just which businesses are adapting faster than other businesses. I think
Mm.
if you're a department store, a Myer or a David Jones in Australia, for example, yeah, you're in big fucking trouble because you haven't adapted, and now you have all of this competition. Even the brands that you used to sell in department stores are now going direct to consumer, so they're cutting the department store out of the market. It's just evolution, right?
Yeah,
Evolution in the commerce world.
because I've heard you say on one of your podcasts that obviously the supplement industry is getting like store even online stores and bricks and mortar stores are starting to get a little bit screwed over because brands are now selling directly
Yeah,
on the site. So
100%.
that's obviously
Yeah.
affecting everything because if someone wants to buy, I don't know, Nexus, Muscle Nation or whatever, those buy directly from the store if they have a deal and that skips the because obviously skipping a middleman, they make more money than you're skipping a whole link in the chain.
Hey, I just want to take a quick second at time out the podcast to introduce Amino's Protein. Use code AGHOSTMAN to get your 5% off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and obviously I can speak directly to the supplement space because that's what I know. That's what
Yeah.
I've known for 20 years. Um, and that's been a big shift in the supplement space. Back when I first started, you know, if you wanted supplements, really the only place you could get them was a supplement store,
Well, you
right?
had to go
So
by health
so
stores. back
Well,
very early on.
before there were supplement
Yeah,
stores, yeah, it was
yeah,
health. It was like Healthy Life and
yeah.
all that
Old
sort of shit.
old school.
Go Vita.
Yeah.
But but it was like if you wanted, one of the first proteins I sold was Optimum Nutrition, gold standard whey. Back then it was 100% gold
Yeah.
standard whey. The only place you could get that was a supplement store,
Mm,
right? So for supplement stores, what we call, in the space we call specialty retail. For specialty retail, it was very good.
mm,
What's happened over the 20 years from when I first started back in 2005 to now is you've had a lot of the brands that we used to retail, and the only place that you used to be able to get those brands was specialty retail, have now gone, you know what, we can get directly to our consumers, primarily in the e-commerce space, and we can target ads directly at our consumers, and we can run our own affiliate programs and our own athlete programs. So we're going to sell directly to our consumers. Why? Well, Andrew, yeah, definitely you make more money because you're not giving up 50% of your margin to the specialty retailer who then marks the product up and keeps that 50%. So you get to keep the 50%. But more importantly, you get to talk to the end of the end consumer as well. So you're building your customer database. You can retarget those customers. You have control over that relationship. So when you talk about like a distribution chain, the most powerful relationship is who gets to talk to the end consumer.
mm.
In the supplement space, and this applies to all industries, but I'll talk from the supplement space, it was the specialty retailer. Now, the specialty retailer has been cut out, and now the brand is talking
Mm.
directly to the end consumer, right? So now they have the power in that relationship. So that's been a big change in supplements for sure.
Circling back to the sponsorships of shows and that and Arnold's,
Yeah.
is that something I want to bring up that come to my attention? Is I think there's less money and stuff like that as well now because those supplement brands, well, especially in Australia and America's not as bad. Well, they have money to do athletes as well, but it's all influencers getting sponsors now, non-competitors. So it's all about your outreach. It's not about you don't have to get shredded anymore. You don't have to get people. You don't have to be on stage. That doesn't mean anything. All the people that do not as much work, like as in get lean and get as big muscle, like the ones that get looked after now because they appeal to the masses. So because they're getting like all the right aware sponsorships and the Nexus or whatever or brands or that, there's nothing like nobody. There's no paid bodybuilders anymore. There's no. It's not like what justifies someone to want to be a bodybuilder. It's for fun. Is less money in it, which is hard for people to want to do it, which is also hard to bring pro shows. Because, like you said, the money. No, everyone that wants to, it's very small percentage of people that want our physiques. They want a physique that's more lifestyle. So that all the people gravitate to them. So they draw money to the shows, draws money to the athletes sponsored, which aren't competitors. Which is like Dave was saying, it's bringing down the less people watching the shows, which brings less money, which is less likely to have a pro show here.
Well, I think it comes down to attention, right? So for the most part, you're correct, but then I would challenge that assumption with like Chris Bumstead, right?
I'm just talking about mostly in Australia, in our market.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, in Australia we probably don't have, well, look, if we're going to talk Australian pros, I would challenge that with like someone like Aaron Pilates.
Mm.
Like Aaron is a top 212 competitor, or has been for quite some time. Um, I think still, Cam, you would probably be able to back this up. I think Aaron's still the only 212 Australian Olympian.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he did a great job of also getting people's attention, right? So
Mm.
he was able to be the top
That's
level of
Aaron. That's
top
Aaron's
level. Yeah,
forte.
He
that's
is
right.
he is
Yeah,
loud.
yeah,
He is loud.
Aaron's
yeah,
It's
forte.
just
yeah.
very
Yeah, but like ultimately it comes back to attention. It was kind of what we were talking about with sponsoring shows, and it getting more difficult to sell sponsorships if you don't have big crowds, because ultimately what you're selling is attention to the sponsors.
Mhm.
I think athlete sponsorships is very similar. From a brand's perspective, you want eyeballs on the brand, you want transactions, you want conversions. In order to do that, you need attention. So, if I'm toying up a top level bodybuilder that doesn't invest anything in the digital space and is just interested in being a top level bodybuilder rather than documenting the process of being a top level bodybuilder, and a Sam Sulek, for example,
Yeah,
who
Sam.
is not a top level, look, he's a pro now, but he's definitely not a top level pro, but he's documented the whole journey. A lot of people watch him. He's got a ton of attention.
Mm.
Well, from a business perspective, who's going to be more attractive to me?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be the same school like,
Yeah.
because that's what I'm interested as a business owner, is the attention. So yeah, I think it's from a competitive bodybuilder perspective, it's definitely changed a lot,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't just focus on being the best bodybuilder. You need to focus on being the best bodybuilder and then the best promoter of your personal brand that you possibly can be
Yeah.
as well.
Being an influencer is a full-time job. Like people don't understand it's work,
Yeah,
which means that, but like
100%.
yeah, the higher you get in division like bodybuilding, the less sort of free time we have. So it's very
Yep,
hard for a open bodybuilder 212 to be commit a lot to influencing like the other people.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're just not as like our lives are very boring because we it's so strict. So
Well,
Like Aaron does make it exciting, but yeah, we need to find ways to be more influential,
mm,
get those
100%.
eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just feel like obviously Chris bumps it out, but I think open bodybuilding I still feel is dying a bit compared to like classic and like wellness and all those like more I'd say more attainable physiques are a lot more appealing to people.
For the most part, yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else anyone wants to add to that?
No, man.
Oh, so another thing I wanted to ask was, did you expect from the start of through school that you were going to become a pro, a business owner, and everything was going to evolve like your life's turned out?
No, definitely not. Definitely not, man. Look, my background, I always found like academic work came quite naturally to me. I
Mm.
worked hard at it, but if I put in the work, I got the results. So I was good at, the maths, the physics, the chemistry, the economics, all those sorts of
You can
things.
just remind people your two
The-
degrees,
yeah, 2 degrees. So I have a first class honors degree in mechanical engineering and a first class honors degree in law.
which are
Both from
both
but
tough degrees,
yeah, I
especially to
was at
finish first class honors.
yeah, I was at university for 8 years. So I spent longer at university than I did at high school, to kind of put that in perspective.
Mm.
So but like the academic thing, always it came naturally to me, right? I worked hard, I got the result. I worked hard, I got the result. So it was, it was just one of those things where really kind of where I thought I was going to be was, like your corporate professional type thing. And that's why I did both of those degrees, because I had kind of two paths that I was pursuing professionally. One of them was Formula One, which was the mechanical engineering side of things. I was like, yeah, it'd be cool to
Did
like
you watch
join
the
a
sprint race today?
the speed race. No,
The sprint race?
no,
Oh,
no. No,
it was good.
but yeah, I was like, I'd love to join a Formula One team and be involved in the engineering department, travel the world, blah blah blah, so on
Mm.
and so forth. And then the other thing was what I actually ended up working in professionally was the legal side of oil and gas companies, which I did do a stint in mergers and acquisitions for a company called Santos, which is one of Australia's biggest oil and
Right.
gas companies.
Yeah, I think I've heard of
Um,
them.
yeah, so yeah, that was kind of my path. But then when I was at university, I got into bodybuilding. Used to play basketball from a very young age, got injured in basketball, and then through that I was exposed to strength and conditioning training. When basketball finished and I couldn't play anymore, I was looking for a competitive athletic lane to kind of fall into, and that was bodybuilding. So I got into bodybuilding pretty much the year I started university. And that was where I got introduced to supplements. And then I started this little supplement side hustle thing. And I was really interested in it and quite good at it. And that was where it started to diverge into like entrepreneurship and business. And that continued the whole time I was at university, because I finished both of the degrees, was running this side hustle supplement business, started doing some work for Santos, and then it was like, okay, I need to make a decision about which fork in
Oh,
this road I'm going to go down, and chose to go down the business road, the entrepreneurship road, which then led to Massive Joe's and TMJ Apparel and everything else that I've done since in the business side of the fitness space.
and
How much of a risk was that when you made that decision? Was the supplements like making a wage, or was it like you weren't sure, but you had to go 100% to see if it would, or
Yeah, it was one of the biggest decisions. I've had times in my life where I've come up against those fork in the roads, and they've been like significant life decisions. That was one of them. I've had four in my life. That was one of them. And the reason for it, Dave, was the business was doing well, right? So at that point, so that would have been 2011. We were in 2011. So the business was doing well. I'd had the business in the online space for that would have been 6, 7 years. It was doing in the millions of top line revenue, but it wasn't very high margin because I didn't know anything about business. I was like, yeah, I'll buy shit. I'll put like a 20% markup on it and I'll sell it. And that'll be enough to sustain my business. And I didn't know anything about,
Margins.
costs of nothing, right? So because I was a teenager, I was 19 when I started. I didn't know shit about anything. So it was doing really good top line numbers in the millions, but there wasn't a lot of profit. So what I was earning out of it at the time would have been maybe 50 or 60 grand, right? So it was enough to live off, but it wasn't a lot. The reason why it was such a difficult decision was the work I was doing for Santos as an engineer and a lawyer at that point in time, they were paying me 150 grand to do that. So I was like, okay, I continue down this professional path, almost no risk because there's always going to be work for me to do. I'm being paid really well as a, what would I have been, 25, 26 years old at the time.
Also, the
Um,
sunk cost of like you spent 8 years at uni to get
and
that
that as
too. So,
and that as well, right? So then there was that sunk cost associated with I've spent so much time of my life invested in this. And that's what made the decision really difficult. So yeah, the business was doing well. It wasn't making a lot of profit. It was a big risk to go and pursue it, but I was confident that I could make it work. But it meant turning my back on the 8 years of study, the six-figure HEX debt that I had, the six-figure salary per year that I was getting paid to go and pursue this business that I thought I could make work.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained. The problem is, well, if you did say the corporate job, that's like your life forever. And then it's like, you might hit 35 and be like, fuck, I wish I didn't do this.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. And look, there were definitely I remember talking to my dad about it at the time because my dad
that was my next
for
question was parents, were they strict?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for my dad's whole career was in oil and gas, right? So that influenced me a lot. And he spent a lot of his career working in Indonesia, in on it was always well, I did a bit offshore, but mainly onshore gas plants. And he was doing fly in, fly out of Indonesia. That was my childhood, right? Like that's what I knew my dad did. And I was talking to him about it because obviously he had a lot of experience in that space. And I was like, what does it look like in 10 years? What does it look like in 15 years? What
Yeah.
does it look like? If I keep going down this path, the best person to ask if you're going down a particular path is somebody who's on the way back, right? So my
Yeah.
dad was on the way back and he could tell me, yeah, this is exactly what's going to happen. And having that insight, I was like, I'm not so sure I like where this path is going. I think the entrepreneur path might be better suited to me. Back then, I knew nothing about core values or vision or any of that sort of shit. It was just kind of gut feel. Now I know a lot more about that, and I can talk in retrospect and go, it wasn't aligned with my core values. It wasn't aligned with where I saw my life going and my vision for my life. Back then, it was kind of just like, I don't really like the sound of that. I like the sound of the business journey a little bit better. So yeah, that definitely helped me make the decision, but it was a significant and very high risk decision at the time for sure.
I just to interject that there about the uni thing, about the 8 years of uni. I'd never consider that a waste just because even though you study things that you might not use, it's still learning and it's still knowing how to where to put efforts, how to research. You still learn things that you use in business anyway. So it's never a waste to be educated, I don't think.
Agreed. For the most part, it is definitely one of my biggest regrets, is the amount of time that I spent at university, um, knowing once again, it's hindsight, right? Like hindsight's such a motherfucker. But you look back on it and knowing what I know now about business, had I, cut that off at the knees, 3 or 4 years in, I would be so much further along as an entrepreneur now because I would have had an extra 4 or 5 years of making mistakes that I could have extracted lessons from, reapplied, and that 5 years back then probably would have multiplied into like 20 years of extra experience where I'm at now. So that is a regret that I have, and I think I still at that point would have got enough of like the learning how to learn thing that you get from tertiary study because I would have been at university for 3 or 4 years anyway. So yeah,
Maybe it was just meant to be. The timing was right. The market that you were meant to be there 8 years, and then
Well,
you
that's
know
the other thing,
you
right?
just don't
Yeah,
know.
no,
You
You
don't
never
know.
know. You
yeah.
never know.
So
It's always nice
I don't
to
know. I don't know how you
work
feel
or
about this, Cam, too, because I know like you've got a trade, but so I did a 4-year trade, and then I worked as a tradesman for a year, and then I quit, and I started in the supplement industry. I was in the supplement and gym sort of space for 7 years. Now I've just quit that, and I'm just online now coaching. But I've wondered that too, like what Andrew said about, was it worth it because you learned things in that time? But I feel like that was a bit of a regret. Like if I went back in time, I wouldn't do that because I feel like it was just a waste of time. And I wish I just
mm,
like did what I wanted to do anyway from the start.
But
mm.
sometimes it's
But
even just you're not mentally ready, or something happens. Things think your life happens how it should. I don't know.
it does. And you can, and like, life has no rehearsal anyway, so you can't go back and
Mm.
know. So it's not really even worth wondering, I guess, because it's a waste of time and to
Like
learn.
I like
Okay.
you, Joe. I came from bodybuilding. I came from basketball. I loved it. I wanted to be in the NBA.
Mm.
Wag school so much, play basketball. And I'm like, now I'm bodybuilder. I'm like, man, if I could go back and start younger, I might be at the Olympia level now. But it's like,
Yeah.
I love those basketball years, and they made me
Mm.
who I am. So it's like, maybe I wouldn't even be this good of a bodybuilder if I didn't do those basketball years. That taught me the discipline and sport and how to be an athlete. So I don't know. Hindsight's
Yeah.
always 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, I regret doing what I like my trade, but only because of where I'm at now with bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Like at that time in my life, that was the path that I was heading down, and I was I was actually quite enjoyed doing it. And but just the more I got into bodybuilding, like kind of like I had to make the choice between being a tradesman or a really good bodybuilder.
Yeah, well,
Mm.
Sparkies are the most looked after, most paid.
My plumbers would get a bit more than Sparkies, but
Nah, here,
yeah, like,
here, Sparkies are way looked after than plumbers here.
oh, okay, yeah, sweet.
Yeah, plumbers
But
are second, electricians, then plumbers, then maybe like you got your niche ones depending on where you work, like boilermakers and stuff as well. If you work
yeah.
in mines, you're always going to get paid more. But on
So,
average here in normal city, it's like electricians.
Joe, is the majority of your income now just through TMJ still, or what other ventures have you got going on?
So my look, man, the venture that I spend most of my time on now is actually business mentoring.
Yeah,
So I started business mentoring back in 2021. And I started it literally doing it for free because I had people who obviously had heard about me through Massive Joe's at the time and TMJ at the time, um, and seen what I'd done, kind of hit me up for like help with their business. And it's funny, it started with tradies often in the first instance, and tradies that had kind of been good at their trade, gone out on their own, and go, oh fuck, I actually don't know how to run a business. Who's someone I know that knows how to run a business? Oh, Joe knows how to run a business. So
yeah,
I started doing some mentoring just for free, just to kind of help people out. And then I was like, oh shit, I really enjoyed this. And there's quite a market for it as well. And so really over the last this will be year 5 now, I've kind of built that side up of what I do. And that's a big part of what I do now is I call it high performance mentoring, because I don't just work with business owners. Most people that I work with are business owners. Yeah, and that's a big part of what I do. So
yeah. And like, is TMJ just still kind of just ticking along in the background?
yeah, so TMJ does its thing. TMJ is
Yeah,
the apparel side, so TMJ Apparel is the
yeah,
activewear brand. I then started my own supplement brand almost a year ago to the day, actually, the 16th of March last year, which is called Key Supplements. So that's kind of like the supplement side of things that I do now. That's a pure direct-to-consumer, online only brand. So yeah, that's my other thing as well.
yeah. That's cool. Because I remember, like, oh gosh, it would have been maybe 10 years ago or so that like you had every athlete in Australia wearing TMJ clothes, and everyone was sponsored
Yeah,
by Massive Joe. So that was a
yeah.
huge influence at that time.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy you remember that. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
we were look what we were doing in the athlete space, specifically with the IFBB, and we did do a little bit WBFF when that was around, but it was very much look, I've always competed in the IFBB. Well, before then it was INBA, but when I wanted to take it seriously, for me it was always IFBB. So that was my exposure. So when we kind of rolled out the athlete program, which I mean, you're right. Cam, it was 2015, 2016, so it was bang on 10 years ago. My goal was to try and get as many through sponsorships and support, try and get as many Australian athletes to the Olympia as we possibly could. Because back then there were no Australian athletes in the
Yeah.
Olympia. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is fucking bullshit, man. Like we have so much talent here.
Yeah.
And it's, as you guys know, as an Australian athlete, it's very difficult to get to the Olympia. I mean, it's very difficult to like get your name out there to even get looked at on a pro stage. And Cam, you've done obviously very well in your pro career thus far, so you know it better than most. But it's very difficult, right? So that was from the athlete sponsorship side of things. I was like, that's kind of the driving goal, and it's going to make business sense for us because we're the first company that's doing it, and I think when you do things with a pure intention, you tend to get return on that investment time after time, and we did. And ultimately, we got Aaron to the Olympia, which was fantastic in 2019. We've just recently gotten Ethan Gohari to the Olympia as well, which is fantastic. So it's taken a long time to get there, but that kind of vision has come to fruition. But over that 10 years, once again, we haven't been immune to the change in attention as well. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, it looks a lot different now to what it did back in
Yeah.
2015, 2016 as well.
Yeah, 'cause that was a really cool time and a cool look for bodybuilding in Australia. Because like you probably know as well, like you feel very, or I feel kind of alone in Australia because we're
Yeah.
not like the as a pro bodybuilder in Australia. Like
Yeah.
it's the scene over here is completely different to America,
Oh,
and you feel
yeah.
very like alone here, and you
More
don't really
culture.
have any. Yeah, you don't really have any support from anyone. It's kind of like you just have to be your own hype, be your own motivation. So,
Mm,
like, I think the team aspect that you had going in was really good. And
mm,
yeah, I wish that like more supplement companies now would actually, instead of just having like um athletes as ambassadors or whatever, but like actually
mm,
boost them up as a team. Like
mm,
boost their athletes up. Put the athletes again on a bit of a pedestal like they used to be. Like, because
mm,
everyone, like, I know, I used to look up to all these guys, like, I
Mm.
used to think, fuck, Logan, Darren, like,
mm,
like I think that's kind of a little bit lost now with like the
mm.
way social media is going.
Yeah, I feel like they
Yeah.
get less respect.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, that was good. Like you say, Cam, TMJ tops everywhere,
Mm.
everywhere
Yeah.
for the colorways. I loved it.
Mm.
Getting ready for my first shows, all I knew was Massive Joe's.
Yeah, you'd
Yeah.
go to the weigh-ins like 2016 to 2020. Everyone had the oversized, like the
Yeah,
pump up
Yeah.
tee. Yeah.
It was a really cool time.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think a lot of
Is that
legit.
like from the TMJ side of things, is that something that you don't have the time at the moment to put into it, or has it died off a little bit in popularity, or you just not put the energy back into it, or like what has that drop off been
Or
from?
is the return just not there on it anymore? Like, yeah.
A combination of all of the above. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. So TMJ apparel is an activewear brand, so very different to the supplement side of things, very much in the activewear piece. The activewear industry has changed a lot in since COVID, right? Since COVID, it's changed significantly. Um, Obviously there's a lot more competition in the space, but fundamentally the business has changed a lot. So if I had to describe how an activewear brand works now, from a very basic economic perspective, it's how much can you spend on ads, right? So how cheap can you make a product? How much can you sell the product for? How big can you get your gross margin so that you can win the bidding war when it comes to ads? Like ultimately, unfortunately, that's where it's at. And that's why you see some of the biggest activewear brands, if you ever buy some of their shit, like you pay a lot for it, it's not particularly good quality. How does this brand survive, let alone how has it built such a big brand? Well, they're pouring, man, 70% of their top line revenue into the advertising space. So it's just attention, it's just eyeballs. So that's changed a lot. And that, I have always been in business when things don't align with my core values and the way that I like to do business, I kind of just go in a different direction. I'm like, I'm not interested in playing that game. I don't need to play that game. I can go and do something else. And I've proven time and time again that I can start a business, build a business, sell a business, do whatever, right? So for me, it's always like, I don't like where this is heading. It doesn't align with the sort of business I'm trying to run or the person that I am. So I'm going to go and do something else. I think a lot of that has been the activewear space, so that it's changed a lot. I don't really like playing that game. I want to make high quality pieces of apparel that are reasonably priced, that people want to wear. And that just doesn't fit the model of how that business works anymore. So there's been that, and then the other side of it is just, my time and my effort as well. It's opportunity cost at the end of the day. So everything I say yes to has an inherent no to something else. When the inherent no becomes more and more valuable, I get a lot more picky around what I say yes to, and so I have to start saying no to a lot of things, which then allows me to say yes to the higher value things. And that's kind of where I'm at in my career now as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what you want to do and what makes money are completely different.
Well, if you can align the two, I think you're going to be the happiest and the most
Oh
fulfilled.
yeah.
So but it's difficult to find that alignment for sure.
But at the end of the day, business is like scaling, making money. It's like it's not about just doing what you want to do. If it's for us to succeed, because it will go under. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you should open a gym. I'm like, yeah, what, one off gym in Adelaide? That's not going to do any good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
know what
Yeah.
you mean about the like things aligning with how you want to be. And like I suppose like I have this own issue as well with the online coaching space,
Mhm.
because a lot of the
Yep.
way online coaches and everyone, like, they promote themselves and the things that they're doing doesn't really align with me as a
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
And like it's kind of like I kind of cringe when I say I'm an online coach sometimes,
Mm.
because my vision in my head of what I'm doing is completely different to what other people are doing. So
Mhm.
it's like it's that, like, trying to align it with your values. And yeah,
Mm.
I get it.
The,
I get what you're saying.
the perception
Mm.
of online coaches is
Yeah,
not.
I don't like
Yeah.
being
You
grouped
almost
in
want to
that.
call yourself something different so you don't
Yeah,
keep
I don't
it
want
the
to be
same.
grouped in that online coach
Yeah.
name. Like,
Yeah.
doesn't align with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
say you're an
Yeah.
online.
Fitness trainer.
No, or,
Yes.
online physique something. Online physique
Yeah.
performance coaches. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I know the space well. I have a number of clients that I work with in the business mentoring work that I do that operate in the online coaching space. So I know it well. And I
And
think I
yeah,
know I think I know what you're talking about, Cam, right? Is it's kind of
like the
like,
ones that are more into like scaling a business
yes,
Well, it's the
yeah,
exact same thing as what
rather
you were
than
saying
what
about,
they're actually, the product that they're giving,
yeah.
the
yes,
product they're
yeah,
providing.
It's like they're
yeah,
spending 70% of your revenue on marketing. Most of these online coaches they've just spent all their time and effort in learning how to market themselves.
correct. Yeah. Yeah. And it becomes churn and burn, right? Because you can acquire a lot of new customers doing that, but
Yeah.
you're not going to retain a lot of customers either. So the
I
concept of
turn.
the business bucket, you pour more liquid into the bucket and it just falls straight out the holes at the bottom. So you
Yeah,
have to keep the machine turning just to keep the business operational.
yeah,
But that's not the only way to run that business as well. Another way to run it is go, well, I'm actually going to try and deliver the best possible service I can to every single client that I work with. Yeah, I'm not going to work with 400 clients. I'm going to work with 40, but every single client is going to feel like they are the most important client in the world to me. And because I'm delivering a better service, I can charge a little bit more because I'm actually investing the time in my clients and not in marketing. It becomes a very different business.
mm,
Um, but there's multiple ways of doing it. But to come back to it, Cam, it's one of the things that whenever I work in the business mentoring space with a new client that comes on board with me, one of the first things we do is this work on core values, right? Is like, what's important to you, right? Like, what are your most important core values? Where do you see your life in 5 years? Not just in the business realm, but in terms of your health and fitness, in terms of your family and life, in terms of your financial capacity, in terms of like relationships with other people. Like, what does that look like to you? And let's make sure that we're building a business that supports that life, not a business that's in misalignment with that life, because you could have a multi-million dollar 8-figure, 9-figure business, yeah, sure, we can build that. But if you fucking hate it,
Yeah, yeah,
what's the point? Like what's the point?
You're basically
You're just
summing
going to
up
be
your
miserable.
decision between your corporate
yeah,
life and your
yeah.
entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
You're like, what's the
yeah,
point in
yeah,
being a safe income, having a boring corporate life when I could go be an entrepreneur and just be so proud of what I've achieved
yeah,
and enjoy it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that's where I don't think people do enough research because there is a lot of good coaches out there, but there's also a lot of crap.
Yeah, 100%. And unfortunately, a lot of the crap coaches are the ones that get a lot of the eyeballs because they're more focused on the marketing than the actual coaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I think what Cam's saying. That's the problem is they look huge like Nike. Oh, this guy's everywhere because of the
Yeah,
marketing. Cam's here, way better service, but people don't see that because all this is, oh, this guy must be legit because look how much he is everywhere. He's all over the gram.
yeah,
People just they're so. I guess people ask me, like if I'm going to buy something, I'll research the shit out of it. I'm like, what's the best
mm,
one? What do people recommend? With? I think people just like, oh, he's in my face all the time. Yeah, I'm signing up with him. And
mm,
then they stay with him. They're like, oh, he's all right. And it's like they get complacent. They just keep paying this coach. I hate how these shit coaches get money when like people like Cam provide the killer service, and it's like that. He should be getting their service, not these other people.
mm.
I don't know. It's definitely a hard one. Like you said, the internet. We all grew up before the internet, all of us. So we all know life pre-internet. I think we all agree it was really. I mean, there's pros and cons, but I think life was a lot easier to be happier pre-internet.
Yeah, I think you have to move with the times, though.
Oh, you do, yeah,
Mm.
Otherwise, you
100%,
you can't be
100%.
yeah.
But I think things just felt. I don't know. Things were different. Things are different. It was just different. So another thing I want to talk about was obviously touch on your pro card. Like obviously it's possible to be a bodybuilder with everything you had going on. So
Mhm.
where do you fit all this in? Becoming a pro, training, dieting, and like was that like when you got your pro card? Was that a where do you put that on your terms of like where your businesses is and that? Like where's that accomplishment ranked?
Very highly for me, for sure. You guys know firsthand how difficult it is to get I don't say pro card, I say IFBB pro card, right?
Yeah,
Because there's a
yeah,
pro card and there's pro cards.
yeah.
So it's very difficult to get an IFBB pro card, especially as an Australian in Australia.
Mm.
Very fucking difficult. Probably one of the most difficult countries to get a pro card in because of how the seasons are structured and the way that, you have to be the overall winner in your particular division in a particular season, and there's only so many pro cards up for grabs. So yeah, for me it was huge. And at the time when I earned my pro card, which was in 2017, it was particularly significant for me because I had gotten so close so many times and just not got it, and then just not got it, and then just not got it. And then 2016, the year before it, I like dropped, like I didn't even place at nationals. I went fucking backwards. And then so to come back in 2017 and then finally get the pro card was a huge achievement for me. And it was something that, I started bodybuilding, I started bodybuilding naturally in INBA, which is now ICN, back in 2005. So I had been competitive bodybuilding for 12 years, to get to that point where I earned an IFBB pro card. So it was a fucking long journey,
Mm.
long journey. And yeah, I still like get goosebumps thinking about it because it was, yeah, it was awesome. Awesome.
Do you think doing the bodybuilding thing in the background of all this helped your mentality and confidence and kept steamrolling, or do you think it would have been easier without all that?
No, I think it definitely helped
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I think the probably the biggest lesson that I've taken from bodybuilding that I apply to other areas of my life is discipline. Just like, there's no other way to describe it. You guys know it, right? Like it's unrelenting, non-stop, every fucking day discipline. And it's not just with the training or the cardio, it's more to do with the diet, right? It's because that's always there, whether you're off season,
It's
on
time
season.
management as well.
It's everything, right? It's everything. Like I think bodybuilding is is one of the most demanding sports because it's 24/7, 365. You can't just do bodybuilding for 2 hours a day. You train for 2 hours a day, but then it's what you do in between those sessions that's actually more important. So, I think the discipline that I learned through bodybuilding for so many years has definitely helped me in business and all other areas of my life, because I've taken, like, discipline's a skill, as you guys know, right? Like, it's something that you can't just like you don't just have it. You have to go through the motions of saying you're disciplined, but then kind of, when people aren't looking, you drop the ball on some shit,
Yeah.
and then understand what the consequences of that are firsthand, to go, oh fuck, I can't do that because that's going to lead to this. That's the skill of discipline, is doing what needs to be done when you don't feel like doing it. That's it in a sentence.
Yeah.
And, being able to take that skill and develop that skill over the 20 years of competitive bodybuilding and then apply that to other areas of my life, I think has been invaluable.
Mm. You've talked about analogies before, like the spinning plates analogy, and that you've changed your
Yeah.
thoughts on that a lot. So to cover up like managing extreme workload, business training, balancing everything, obviously fatherhood just recently.
Yeah.
You obviously structure your day really well with time management. Talk about your new analogy from the spinning plates now and talk about the orchestra.
Yeah, it's a good one, and thank you for doing the research and bringing that up. I used to have this saying in this analogy. The saying was micro obsession, macro balance. And the analogy was spinning plates. So it's the clown at the circus, and he has like the stick, and he's got the one plate spinning on it, right? And he focuses on the one plate, and that gets enough inertia that and then he pulls up another stick with another plate, and then another stick with another plate, and he's got 10 different sticks with 10 different plates. And so the analogy was each one of those plates represents a different area of my life. So one might be my bodybuilding, one might be business, one might be my health, one might be my family, one might be my finances. So they're all spinning, but I can only focus on one plate at one particular point in time. And that was the micro obsession, right? So when I'm bodybuilding, I'm 100% focused on bodybuilding at the expense of all the other plates. So I'm going to focus on spinning that plate, micro obsession, and all the other plates are going to slow down. But then the macro balance was, well, once I'm finished with bodybuilding, I can pull back out, I can have a look at all the other plates, and then I can go, oh shit, which plate's about to fall down? Let me go and focus on my business, or let me go and focus on my personal life, or let me go and focus on my finances. Micro obsession, spin that plate, pull back out, macro balance, what's going on. And that served me very, very well, until it stopped serving me well. And I think the reason why it stopped serving me well, because I got to a point where I had so many plates spinning, I couldn't micro obsess and macro balance fast enough to keep everything in motion. And the big catalyst for me was 2017, I turned pro. I also got married in 2017 to my first wife. 2018, our marriage broke down. And that was a big, obviously there's always many different reasons for marriages breaking down, but a big part of it was I neglected that relationship because I was focused on bodybuilding. And then the next plate was the business plate. And then it was, oh shit, I need to go focus on the finance plate. And so the marriage plate never actually got spun. So it started to break down for me at that point in time. And then, I had businesses were growing at the same time. I got invited by Tony to be a promoter of the pro league. So that was another, there was so many things going on. And so I was like, okay, fuck, this has served me pretty well to this point in my life, but it doesn't serve me anymore. So I need to start thinking about this in a different way. And so the micro obsession, macro balance is very much balance, right? So it's like when people talk about like work-life balance or health-life balance or whatever, it's one thing at the exclusion of something else. So in order for me to be successful at this one thing, everything else, it's like zero-sum mindset. Everything else needs to be neglected for a short period of time, but everything else needs to be
Just
neglected.
before you move on, that's not saying that
Yeah.
doesn't still work for people. That's like it still
Yeah.
works. It's just you need to know when you've outgrown that
When you've
analogy.
outgrown it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, for me, it worked right up until 2018. It worked for what was that, 13, 14 years of bodybuilding, 13, 14 years of business, and it yielded an incredible amount of success across all the different areas of my life. You look at my life in 2017, fucking pro men's physique, 8-figure business, apparel business, married to a world champion bikini fucking athlete. Like it was picture perfect, right? So it yielded a lot of success. But when it got to the point where it started breaking down, that was where I was like, well, this balance thing doesn't suit me anymore. This micro obsession, macro balance, the spinning plates thing doesn't suit me. I need to think about a different way of a different
Managing.
mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I've worked with a clinical psychologist for almost 10 years now, and she helped me. She gave me different seeds to think about, planted different seeds to think about. And so, what I've developed over the years is I don't try and achieve balance anymore. What I try and achieve is harmony, right? So I say balance is bullshit. Harmony is what you need to be in pursuit of. And the analogy now that I use is I'm the conductor of an orchestra, and the orchestra is my life. So the different elements of the orchestra, the woodwind and the trumpet and the drums and the flute and all these sorts of things, those are now representative of the different areas of my life. And as the conductor of this orchestra, right, you don't focus on one instrument at a time. You get all of the instruments to play together, right? So that's the harmony analogy for me now. So it's not one thing at the expense of the other. It's at different seasons of life, I'm going to focus more on one thing than everything else, but it's not one thing at the expense of everything else. It's okay, I'm going to lean a little bit more into business, but that's actually going to make me a better husband, a better father, a better athlete, better with my finances, so on and so forth. And then there's going to be a season where I'm going to lean more into my family life. That's not at the expense of business or at the expense of fitness. That actually makes me a better businessman. It makes me a better pro athlete. So this is now how I
Sometimes you
think
can
about
have
it.
solos.
You can have
Yeah.
solos, yeah, but it's all of the other instruments in the orchestra are still doing their
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, that's how I think about it now. And at this stage of my life, not to say that's going to be the be all end all, but at this stage of my life and my career, that suits me much better than the spinning plates and the micro obsession, macro balance
You
thing.
think like it's all good to have two different analogies and to approach things differently mentally, but
Yeah,
physically,
yeah,
what's the difference that you found with how you approach that or how you set yourself up physically, and what does that look like with how you go about your relationship when you're in a bodybuilding prep, or how that goes about what you do with business when you're
yeah,
focusing on family, when you first had your son, or like
yeah,
it's all well and good to kind of use those analogies that make you feel a certain way or whatever, but physically,
yeah.
what does that look like and what's the difference?
Yeah, and I agree with you, Dave. Like the theory is helpful. It's my son in the background. The theory is obviously very helpful, but the real unlock is how do you practically apply it? For me, practically, it looks like elevating the standards that I hold myself to across every area of life. So back when I was focused on the micro obsession, macro balance, there were no standards, right? I was just like, I'm going to go all in on this, and then everything
Yes.
else is just going to fall to the fucking, wayside. Now it's like, okay, cool. I there's standards that I have, right? So I get up at 4 a.m. every day. Doesn't matter if I'm in prep or out of prep, or that's just my standard. Why do I do that? Well, that allows me to get some personal development time in the morning. It allows me to get to the gym while my son's still asleep. It allows me then to be more present with my wife and my son throughout the day. It allows me to so that's a standard, for example. Another standard that I have is with regards to my diet. Another standard that I have is with regards to how I audit my time. So I throughout my work days, Monday to Friday, my work days, I track every 30-minute block. I know exactly how I'm spending my time every 30 minutes of every day. That's extremely powerful because I can very quickly see where I'm wasting fucking time, right? I don't have time to waste. So if there's a 30-minute block in there that's not allocated to something productive, I'm catching that straight away. I go, okay, cool. Okay, I fucked up. What am I going to do tomorrow? So that's another standard. So I think across the board, in terms of like energy levels and physicality and so on and so forth, it's about identifying what those minimum standards are and then starting to elevate them. One of the sayings that I have is you don't rise to the level of your ambition, you fall to the level of your standards. So the only way that you're going to fulfill a big ambition is to also have very high standards, right? And there's always a gap between what you want to achieve and what you want to get done and what you're willing to accept. And the only way to get here is to get this level up to here. So what you're willing to accept, which is your standards, needs to rise across the board.
So before, when you were doing the sort of the plate spinning thing, You
Yeah,
would just like if you were doing bodybuilding, you would just put every bit of your intensity into bodybuilding.
100%.
Now you're kind of saying that you're putting a minimum on what your relationship needs. You're putting a minimum on business and you make
100%.
some kind of system work so that those minimums aren't falling under.
Yeah, that they're not negotiated on.
Yeah.
100%.
Mm. And because you're doing things at the same time, it's like, well, I can have a family dinner, but I'm bringing my meal. Yeah, it's like you start integrating to get.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And look, man, like the I always look at people that I look up to that are doing incredible things across multiple areas of their life. And I'm like, well, fuck, they're only human, right? So if one man can do it, another man can do it. And the cliche saying is success leaves clues. So you kind of look at, someone that I always come to is Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, right? I look at what Dwayne Johnson does because, he's a father, he's a husband, he's in movies, he's in business, he's in wrestling. This guy does everything
Mm.
at a very high level as
And he's got
well.
a physique.
And he's got a physique, right? And he's got a physique well into his, is he 50 now? He must almost be 50 now, right? Like well into
They'll
his,
be
at
close.
least his late 40s, over 50. So, well, he's only human, right? So if he can do it, it can be done. How do people like this do that sort of thing? And then you kind of go down that rabbit hole and you're like, okay, well, it can't be balance, can't be balance, right? It just doesn't fucking work with that sort of high level of performance across different domains of life. So what is it? Well, when you start looking at the standards he holds himself to, and then it's very reflective of what I just spoke about. It's this harmony, right? And absolutely no doubt, the standards Dwayne holds himself to would be much higher than the standards I hold myself to. I'm just a little toddler in this game of harmony. But that's where I kind of go, well, if that's possible, how do you reverse engineer that? How do you get to the rock level?
Mm. He'd also have a team of people helping him.
Well, 100%, right? But a team is only valuable if they're rowing the boat in the same
Yeah.
direction. And the
Mm.
team is always led by the leader.
Mm.
So, then you look at his leadership and he goes, well, he must be a fucking incredible leader as well.
Mm. That's right. And you can only get that team by doing what he did to get there.
100%. No one gives you a team,
Mm.
so
So, do you feel like life got easier as you progress, or did you just get better at managing it?
no, I think you get better at managing it for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
learn. You learn.
Yeah.
Um, what else? We're getting close to time, so um, has becoming a dad changed anything in your perspectives?
Yeah, everything.
Mm.
Everything. Do you guys, Andrew, you don't have kids yet?
I'm not having kids.
Not having kids? Dave, do you have kids?
Yeah, yeah.
How many?
I've got three kids. They're 14 to 8.
Beautiful. And Cam?
Yeah, I got one son. He's 12.
Beautiful. Yeah. So you guys know firsthand, right? So I think having kids just changes your perspective on um look, I think probably, and I'm a very new dad, right? Like my son is 15 months old. Um, so once again, very new to this whole fatherhood, parenting thing. But at this point, the biggest change in perspective that it's given me is probably how I view time. I think, right? And I think in both directions because like he's growing up so fast, and I'm like, far out. This is going so fast. So there's that kind of perspective. Then there's the perspective around time, around like I want to spend as much time with him as I can at this point because this is definitely not going to last forever. Like he's picking up new things every couple of days, and things that we used to do with him as a baby we're no longer doing because now he's a toddler, and you'd never get that time back. But then secondly, I kind of go, in business, I've always planned in like 5-year blocks, 5-year blocks, 5-year blocks. Sometimes I'll progress out to 10-year vision, but it's usually 5-year blocks, 5-year plan. And now when I think about it, I'm like, in 5 years, he's still only 6 years old. And then another five, he's only 11. And then another five, he's only 16. So on the other end, it's like shit, there's so much time. So it's given me like this really interesting warpy perspective on how I look at time that I just never had before having a child.
We're going back to the forks in your life. You said the one of the big ones was the go down entrepreneurship or stay corporate life? What were the other three?
Ah, okay. So the first one was when I turned my back on basketball to pursue bodybuilding.
Mhm.
Um, that was the first one. The second one was entrepreneurship corporate. The third one was the breakdown of my first marriage, so leaving that first marriage. And then the fourth one is really what I've gone through in the last 12 months, which has been opportunity costs, change in direction for, well, not change in direction, but next chapter of my career. And funnily enough, I was having this discussion with my wife at the end of last year. They've been 7 years apart every single time. So it was like 19 was the first one, then 26 was the next one, then 33 was the next one, and then I turned 40 last year, and that was
There
the
is the
current one.
7-year rich saying.
Hey man, there's the proof's in the pudding, right?
When's the next 7 years?
Well, I'm at year one again, so
Oh,
it
so
won't be
yeah, so
till
in
it
seven
won't be
years.
till seven
Well, let's see
years
what
time.
happens. Let's see what
I know,
happens.
right? Yeah.
So what's I won't worry about segregating, but what's one big lesson to take away for the for everyone listening?
In what realm in particular?
In what's one piece of advice, or if someone wants to be successful in anything, doesn't have to be like as big as successful as you, but if someone wants to exceed in just say something, what's one lesson you can give people from your experience and what you've learned?
I think true success takes a lot longer than you think it's going to take. And I think there's a couple of reasons behind that. The first one is figuring out what actually matters to you just takes a lot of life experience. So, you might be successful in your early 20s in one area of your life, and then you kind of have a little bit more life experience, and you're like, oh, actually, you know what? There's other things that are a little bit more important to me that I've probably dropped the ball on, and I need to go and alter my life to go and pursue that. I think then, like success in any field of life just takes a lot of time, right? Like bodybuilding is a great, not just analogy, but a great lesson teacher for all areas of life. You can't build a pro level physique just by thinking about building a pro level physique. Like you have to do the work, you have to do it for years, you have to do it for decades to get to that sort of level of success. And I think that rings true across business, it rings true across relationships, it rings true across any realm of life. Is it just takes a lot of time, and a lot more time than you probably think it's going to take when you first set out. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson is be patient, understand that things are going to take a lot longer than you think they're going to take, and true success across all realms of life is definitely one pursuit that's going to take probably a lifetime to get there.
Yeah. So also, so understand that success in anyone's individual eyes changes over time, and that
Mm.
everyone has a different perspective of success as well.
Yeah, and so will you,
Yeah.
which is the most important thing. Like your perspective of success is going to change. And it's the old cliche of, you try to get to the top of the mountain, and then you get to the peak, and then when you're at the peak, you see that there's another peak, and
Yeah.
then and then there's another peak, right? So that definitely rings true. I've experienced that firsthand for sure. But then, you go from climbing a mountain, you get to the peak, and then you realize it's not actually a mountain you're on. You might be on like a hill, or you might be on, something that isn't even a mountain, and you're like, oh fuck, I thought I was climbing a mountain. Oh no. The next phase of life is going to lead to you climbing something else.
And
So
that's why people always say you got to enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the journey, because the peaks you're there and you start climbing again. So it's like
yeah,
you don't get time to enjoy that. So the only time you should be enjoying the most is the journey.
yeah,
Yeah. So some
100%.
rapid fire stuff. Best habit for success.
Discipline.
Discipline. Worst mistake people normally make, or a
Lack of
mistake
patience.
mistake usually people make. Lack of patience.
Lack of patience. Yeah.
What's harder, bodybuilding or business? Depends what you love.
Business.
Depends what you love more, I guess.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say business, and the reason why I've actually I get this question a lot, and so I've given it a lot of thought over the years. I think the reason why business is harder is because bodybuilding, for the most part, there's a direct relationship between input and output, right? So if you lift the weights, if you follow the diet, if you do the work, your body will change, right? And in a relatively short period of time. Business is you go through this thing called the void, what I call the void, right? Some people call it no man's land. Some people call it, what is Chris Williamson calls it, the lonely chapter. And it's this period where like you're putting a lot of input, a lot of input, a lot of input, a lot of input, and nothing changes on the output side. And so you go, well, fuck, like, am I doing the wrong thing? And this is where a lot of people in business, they pivot or they stop doing things that are working because they can't see the output of the output associated to the input. Business is there's a much bigger delay between input and output. And you'll go through periods where you're working your fucking ass off and you're doing everything that you know you can be doing based on your skills and experience at that point in time, and nothing changes on the output end. And you just have to keep going, and you have to have faith that at some point that's going to pay off.
Yeah.
That's why I think business is more difficult, because that relationship between input and output, you'll go through periods where there just is no relationship, and you just have to commit to continuing to do the work.
You're also bodybuilding. You're in control of that. Business is like the market, clients, customers.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's a good one as well. Yeah, there's a lot of things
It's you.
outside of your
Bodybuilding is
control.
you on you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what keeps you motivated now? Your son providing for your family.
yeah, definitely. I think the so I've always been motivated by an internal drive to achieve, right? Achieve things, right? Achieve business, achieve academic success, achieve physical success. Like, achievement for me is definitely one of my highest order core values. Achievement for me now involves the example that I'm setting for Harry, for my son, for sure. So once again, it's still achievement, but it's a different perspective on, why is this important to me?
Mm-hmm. Dave, have you any more questions for Joe?
No, all this has been excellent.
Yeah, no, I've just enjoyed
Yeah.
the insight. It's good.
Yeah, it's been good because it's a little bit refreshing for us. It's that a little bit away from bodybuilding a bit. This podcast. It's a bit
Yeah,
different.
yeah. I
So,
can talk about bodybuilding all day too.
oh
So
yeah,
don't get me wrong.
we can, but we're just trying to give people some more,
Different. Yeah,
just something different because you do get sick of it. You need to be taken away sometimes so we can get back to it. Well, thanks for coming on, Joe. We've all got meals to eat. I don't want to take up too much of your time because it sounds like you're a busy man.
yeah. I got a little bit going on. So I'm cooking. I'm
Yeah,
cooking dinner for the family tonight. So yeah,
nice.
I'm excited
Well,
for that.
good luck for the next 7 years until you fork again.
Yeah, yeah. If history repeats itself. Yep.
There's another idea for a top 7 years.
Yeah.
Inside joke. All right, well, thanks for coming on. I hope everyone really enjoyed that. And again, don't forget coaching inquiries, Dave, Cam, and mentoring coach Joe. Where can they contact you?
My website's the best. So just my
All
name, josephmencel.com.
right, no worries. Anything else you want to add, Dave, Cam?
No, man.
No,
All
good.
right, no worries. These guys, Cam, stay on the talk.
All right.
Bye.